Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another fantastic Game Thrifter episode. Today, I'm going to go into cheap PlayStation 3 games. Yeah, I feel like right now is a fantastic time to collect for the PlayStation 3. As you know, I get a lot of comments about, hey, why don't you just emulate or get an emulator, get a PC? No offense to those people, right? But for me, it's all about the hunt. It's all about collecting the physical item and playing it on original hardware. So hopefully that clears up some things for you guys that asked me that question. Well, why don't you just do this? It isn't just about having the game to play it. If you're just interested in playing the game and that's your avenue, that's fine. For me, I collect games. I have thousands of games. Not everybody has that room, and I don't even have everything out on display. But if you have the room, I always say, hey, go ahead and pick that up. And the PlayStation 3 is such an underrated console, and I'm glad to see that it gets the shine that it deserves these days. So without further ado, we're going to go into some very cheap and very affordable PlayStation 3 games that I absolutely love. So I'm actually a big fan of God of War Ascension. I know that a lot of people look at it as kind of just an extension or maybe sort of DLC or a half game after God of War 3, and that could be partially true. But this will always, I guess, forever be Kratos' last hurrah when he was sort of this badass character. I love the newer God of War games, don't get me wrong, but he was really kind of toned down for newer audiences, in my opinion, in the new games. Even though I think they play great, he's still kind of this raw, visceral character in God of War Ascension, and there's just something special about that, and I really kind of resonate and love that. And you know what's funny is, you played through the first few God of War games, and he's just this grouchy kind of like horrible person or whatever, and you get a little bit more sense and reason as to why he is the way that he is through the story in this game. And so, again, I feel like they really did a good job of storytelling. The gameplay is fun. It's fast. It's furious. It's just one of those things where I absolutely love playing through this game. I know that it's probably a little bit controversial, but you could pick this game up for like $10-12, and of course the prices might vary depending on regions. I'm in a particular area where games usually are pretty cheap, but well worth it to pick it up. And I actually have, what's funny is I still have my collector's edition of this game. It came with a Kratos statue and a steelbook case, and I bought that originally. I think the whole thing was $80 or something. It wasn't even very expensive back then, and now you can find this game incredibly cheap and pick it up and play it. If you love the original God of War games, you're going to want to pick this one up. I know this one didn't do as well as the original 3, but still a very fun and worthy game. Now, if you like cheap games that are fun, and these games are actually still tied to the PlayStation 3, or at least some of them, like this one, Infamous, is such a fun game. A superhero game before we got inundated with superhero games, and making a new IP from scratch is never an easy task. And obviously, I get that some people think that it's kind of a lower resolution game, and to be fair, it is, but look at the hardware, for the time that it is. But as you can see, to me, the game still looks and plays really, really good. There's a couple of great Infamous games on the PlayStation 3, and you can pick them up for under $10. So being able to play Infamous for, that price, I think is fantastic. Believe it or not, I own the physical copy, but I also own the digital copy. And you want to know how I own the digital copy? Because when PlayStation had its infamous hack, see what I did there? Their PSN hack, they gave away some free games to people when they came back up online. And so this is one of the free games that they actually presented to fans, which I thought was a really cool gesture considering everything that had happened. But love to see that this is kind of something that was updated, and they really did a good job with it. I love that Sucker Punch did a good trilogy of games here. Probably my favorite is still the first game. Just such a great game and a great character. But yeah, if you can pick it up and you like collecting games, yeah, PlayStation 3 has some great ones. Some still tied to the platform, like this one, like God of War Ascension, and both are particularly cheap to pick up right now. Next up is a real classic in Heavenly Sword, which is a game that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, and I get that the controls are somewhat clunky and things like that, but I think this is just such a fun game, and Ninja Theory did such a good job with it. I'm not sure who actually owns the IP. I think maybe it could perhaps be Microsoft themselves, or maybe it is Sony. I don't really know, but what I can say is I think that this is a worthy game, and I would love to see Microsoft or whoever owns it. If it's Sony, then it's Sony, but I would love to see like a sequel to this game. And I feel like a lot of people probably think the same way that I do where this is concerned, and I would love to see something come about, or maybe a spiritual successor or something along those lines, because we just don't get these types of games anymore. And I think one of the reasons we don't get these types of games is maybe some people think the protagonist is too attractive or whatever. Like get over it. I think games are meant to be fun. They're supposed to be great, easy on the eyes, and I think that this is just really indicative of a better, simpler time in video games, and that makes it, to me anyway, worthwhile. So maybe you guys feel the same way that I do about this stuff. I certainly feel like this is a worthy game to pick up, and you can pick it up for under $15. So yeah, pick it up. Hack and slash, very cool, great to look at, and just a fun game to play through. Next up, we have a twofer. Really could be a threefer if you really wanted to think about it, but Resistance, Fall of Man, and Resistance 2. Now, it's funny because when you look at sort of the facts of what the PlayStation 3 launched with, it didn't launch with much, but Resistance, Fall of Man was certainly a breakout hit, and Insomniac Games kind of carried a lot of what the PlayStation 3 was trying to offer. They did 3 Resistance games, they did Ratchet and Clank games. They honestly just did such a good job, and they continue to do a good job. If you think about the PlayStation 5, as you guys know, this current generation, I'm kind of a little bit disappointed in the games situation, but I think Insomniac Games has done a good job of carrying the PlayStation. They did Spider-Man Remastered, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man 2. They're going to be releasing a Venom game. They released Ratchet and Clank. They're just really doing a fantastic job. And so Resistance, Fall of Man, Resistance 2, both great. I love Resistance 2. It might be my favorite of the entire trilogy, but both are very fantastic games, have some awesome campaigns and great set pieces, great characters, and they look great. Even in 2024, you kind of look at how these games are, and you could just say this is just well-crafted games, and that's what I think I like about Xbox 360, PS3 era. When you get into this era, the games hold up well and still look awesome. So yeah, definitely worthwhile picking up, and both these games are extremely cheap. You can get them both for under $10. You can't really beat it, so trust me. So pick up Resistance, Fall of Man, and Resistance 2, and maybe even Resistance 3 if you're feeling lucky. All really awesome games. Next up is a game called Remember Me. I did this in one of my first PlayStation 3 videos. Yeah, it's not an exclusive, and it's on the Xbox 360, but they're still tied to those games. So I always feel like this game does not get enough love. It is a fantastic game. It's really just a game that I feel like didn't find its audience because it came out so late in the 360 and PS3 generation, and that is a real problem. When we sort of see that kind of stuff that happens, I honestly feel like we live in a world where, we're kind of have one-track minds or whatever. And so we are so preoccupied with like new hardware and things like that, that we didn't really kind of pay attention to this game. And I just feel like that would have been something that should have been worthwhile in my humble opinion. So again, we'll see what happens in the future. I don't think this franchise will ever come back, but this game is like under $15, and it's definitely worthwhile and picking up and playing, just because it has such a fun kind of history to it, and sort of a fun little like story arc, great characters, and great sort of just fun gameplay as well. So as you guys can see, and what's awesome is this game looks really awesome. It's such a good looking game, and the PS3 does it, kind of justice, in my opinion. So great to see that, and I'm sure a lot of you have some fond memories of this game, but if you can find it, pick it up. Well worth playing through. Next up on the list is a game that I personally love but don't see a lot of people talk about, and that is Starhawk. Yeah, it's sort of the spiritual follow-up to Warhawk, which Warhawk was an online-only kind of multiplayer game, and this game is a very much single-player game. And what's sad is, at the time, PS3 was coming out with these amazing single-player exclusive games, and I know some of them would have multiplayer or whatever, but for all intents and purposes, this was a single-player game, and it kind of went under the radar, and so people didn't really gravitate towards it, and unfortunately the studio shut down, and we probably will never see anything like this in the future. But such a fun game, quirky, easy to play, easy to pick up and kind of understand. It has a fun story, and it's action-packed, which I just feel like these third-person games were just fantastic back then, and what a great game to kind of jump into. If you've never heard of this game, give it a try. You can pick it up for well under $15. I think I saw a copy going the other day for under $10. So, it's definitely one of those franchises that we'll probably never see again. But this is an exclusive to PS3. Never been on anything else. We'll likely never see it again. And so still tied to the system. So if you're a collector, this is definitely one that you'll probably want to actually collect. And like I said, another cheap game. Time for another twofer, and yeah, it's Motorstorm and Motorstorm Pacific Rift. These are great racing games, and I think Pacific Rift in particular kind of is a game that is very accessible and comparable to like the Forza Horizon series on Xbox. And I know some people probably won't agree with that or thinks that I'm wrong in that assessment, but I desperately think Sony misses the Motorstorm franchise. It's a franchise that was incredible on the PlayStation 3, and I think they don't have that arcade type racing game that's just fun. And that's what Motorstorm was. It's just such a fun game. You have the original Motorstorm. You have Motorstorm Pacific Rift. I think there's another one on the PlayStation 3 as well. And most of the time you can find these games for under $15. I think the first Motorstorm game might be under $10. And these games are well worth it. All platforms need a racing franchise, an arcade racing franchise. And again, I think that people that have in the past had maybe some bad things to say about my lists or the games that I choose, or they go, oh, those aren't exclusive because I can buy them on this and the blah, blah, blah. A lot of the games, if not all the games that I've picked for today's video, are probably still tied to that generation, and most of them are tied to the PlayStation 3, and these games are tied to the PlayStation 3. We'll never see another one in this series. They didn't make remasters of them, so yeah, and they're fun to collect. Again, the PS3 had so many fun games and so many fun exclusives that are just easily to collect for right now. Yeah, pick these up. Motorstorm Pacific Rift, fun stuff. I couldn't do a list and not put a Sly Cooper game on there. Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time. Absolutely fantastic platformer for the PlayStation 3, and super accessible and cheap, right? Like, let's just be real. We see a lot of these games from Sony, and that's how they really kind of came through. We know that the PS3 kind of launched slow, and they really kind of lagged behind the competition in terms of games, and then they really hit it hard with the exclusives. Like, you can't believe how many exclusives they have. Like, I played the PS3 mainly for the exclusives. Yeah, I had some multi-plats and stuff, but mostly the PS3 was an exclusive machine for me, and I've got lots of them, and it's such a fun thing to collect for. Now that I collect, I will pick up the multi-plats, because believe it or not, you can pick up multi-plats extremely cheap. There's tons of them to kind of see as well. But yeah, just such a fun console to collect for. Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time, fantastic game. If you love platformers, the PlayStation 3 is definitely a platform for you. There's just so many fun ones to kind of pick up and play. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the video. And again, a game that's tied to the platform. So, there it is. Definitely well worth the time to pick up and play, though. You can pick it up for under 15 bucks. Just so much fun to be had. Lastly, I wanted to put Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. Yeah, another game tied to the PlayStation 3. There's no other official way to play it. You have to play it on the PlayStation 3. I'm sure there's probably some kind of unofficial thievery that you could do to play it elsewhere. But honestly, they added trophy support to it, which it didn't have at launch, which is really cool, so you can get some trophies while you play it. I replay this game at least once a year. I just like to break it out and kind of play it. I always have my PS3 hooked up anyway. But this is such a great game to play, and obviously, probably the last one that we'll ever see that's worth a damn, right? Like, I know some people really liked the one that came out on Xbox One and PS4, but that game was so boring and maybe too open world or too bloated or whatever. But to me, Metal Gear Solid 4 is the way Metal Gear went out, the way it was meant to be, and they did such a fantastic job with it. Kojima, a swan song as far as I'm concerned with the franchise, and you could pick it up for under 10 bucks. Like, I seriously have seen this game go for like $7.99, so there's no reason not to pick it up, not to collect it. It's such a fantastic title. If you love action stealth, and by the way, you don't have to be stealthy, you can just go guns a-blazing and do just fine. So give it a try for sure, and it's fun to collect for. So awesome franchise. There you have it, a list of cheap PS3 games. If you're a collector like me, you can probably find these games very cheap at numerous outlets, and there's a ton more that I could have listed and went into. Obviously, you know, there's an entire generation of great consoles and great console games, so don't be afraid to pick it up. And if you're a gamer that's maybe disillusioned with current stuff and you're younger, pick up a PS3 or 360 and give some of these games a try. And if you do enjoy my content, please like the videos, share them out, and maybe even consider subscribing, because all that stuff helps with channel growth and helps the channel to be seen, which makes me be able to do more videos and things like that. So the more views and the more subscribers allows me to invest more time into it and things like that. So thank you guys all very much. Collect the games, collect the consoles, have a great time gaming, and I'll catch you next time.